TikTok user Lily was home alone when, at 1:20 a.m., she suddenly heard her front door handle move. At first, she hoped it was just the wind, but the sound continued, steady and deliberate. Someone was trying to get in. A few seconds later, she showed footage from her security camera outside. It captured a man, dressed entirely in black, scanning the area before walking into the apartment complex. Unfortunately, no further updates were provided after that clip, but this was most likely the same person who was at her front door. Thankfully, nobody made it inside her apartment. On the night of June 6, 1992, the city of Springfield, Missouri was buzzing with celebration. It was graduation night, and two best friends, Suzanne Susie Streeter and Stacy McCall, had just finished high school. They spent the evening attending several graduation parties, and around 2 a.m., they returned to Susie's home on East Delmar Street, where she lived with her mother, Cheryl Levitt. And from that moment on, all three women vanished without a trace. The next morning, when friends arrived at the house to make plans for the day, they immediately noticed things weren't right. The front door was unlocked. The porch light was broken, with shattered glass on the step. Inside, everything seemed normal, but off. All three women's purses, keys, and clothing were still in the house. The TV was on. Susie and Cheryl's cigarettes were left untouched. Even the dog, Cheryl's Yorkshire Terrier, was still there, anxious but unharmed. There were no clear signs of a struggle. Despite hundreds of tips, polygraphs, national media attention, and even involvement from the FBI, there's been no confirmed sightings, no suspects, and no physical evidence explaining what happened to the three women, now known as the Springfield Three. Over the years, multiple theories have surfaced. Some believe the women were abducted by someone they knew. Others suggest it could have been a random intruder. There was even a tip that the women were buried beneath a parking garage downtown. But multiple digs and scans have turned up nothing. More than 30 years have passed since that night. Susie, Stacy, and Cheryl left behind grieving families, and a case that still haunts the Springfield community to this day. What happened inside that quiet home in the early hours of June 7th? Three women, no witnesses, no evidence, no answers. Just a heartbreaking, unsolved mystery. The creator, Exploratory, decided to explore an abandoned mansion. As he walked down a long hallway, he suddenly heard something. Soft singing, accompanied by the sound of musical instruments, coming from down the stairs. Curious, he went down to investigate. That's when he heard a strange automated voice, speaking in a language he couldn't understand. At that moment, he quickly realized it wasn't safe to stay any longer. He left the mansion immediately. But it makes you wonder, what was going on in that place that night? And was it truly abandoned? On January 24, 2006, 24-year-old Jennifer Joyce Kessie mysteriously vanished from her condo in Orlando, Florida after leaving for work. She was never seen again. 2 days later, her car was found abandoned about a mile from her home. Surveillance cameras caught an unidentified person parking it and walking away, but the footage was too blurry to identify anyone. Inside her condo, investigators found signs she had started her morning routine, but her keys, phone, purse, and iPod were missing. Despite extensive searches, no confirmed sightings or arrests have been made. Over the years, her family and private investigators have pushed for new leads, and in recent years, the FDLE renewed the investigation after uncovering new DNA evidence. Jennifer's disappearance remains one of the most perplexing missing person cases in recent US history, and the mystery of what happened that day continues. A couple set up a camera in the nursery to watch their baby girl. The door was always left slightly open for convenience. But one night, something terrifying happened. 3 loud thumps echoed through the room, and the door suddenly slammed shut with a loud bang. the real horror came next. On the monitor, a dark, shadowy figure appeared over the crib, looming over the baby. Its form shifted unnaturally in the dim light, and it even moved a toy at the front door of the crib before slowly vanishing. No one knows what it was, but the chilling footage left the parents completely unsettled. A rental house owner went to her vacant property to clean it up for a new tenant. The house had been empty for 2 months. While mopping the floors, she noticed clear human footprints on the ground. The strange part is, the woman was wearing sneakers, so the prints weren't hers. The feeling of being watched hit her immediately, as if an invisible presence shared the space. Had someone been inside while the house sat empty for 2 months? YouTube channel DM Secret Facts uploaded a strange piece of security footage from inside a jail. The video shows a faint mist-like shape, almost transparent, appearing near the back of the cell. Moments later, the cell door opens and a guard walks directly beneath the camera and looks straight into it, almost as if he's checking whether it's working. Behind him, the mist-like figure lingers, even after he eventually leaves. Some viewers believe it was just dust or a camera glitch, but others believe it could be something else, something tied to the jail itself. On February 14th, 2000, Valentine's Day, 9-year-old Asha Jakia Degree vanished from her home in Shelby, North Carolina, under deeply mysterious circumstances. It was a school night. Asha had gone to bed like normal in the room she shared with her older brother. But in the early morning hours, sometime between 2:30 and 3 a.m., Asha quietly got out of bed, packed her school bag with personal items, and walked out into the dark. No one knows why. At 4 a.m., 2 different motorists reported seeing a young girl walking alone down Highway 18, wearing light clothing despite the cold, rainy weather. One of the drivers turned around, concerned, but when he tried to approach her, the girl bolted into the woods. That was the last confirmed sighting of Asha Degree. By morning, her family discovered she was gone and launched a desperate search. Flyers were printed, helicopters were deployed, dogs, volunteers, and police combed the area, but there was no sign of Asha. Not until over a year later, in August 2001, when a contractor discovered something buried off the highway, 20 miles from where Asha was last seen. It was Asha's backpack, wrapped carefully in plastic trash bags and buried. Inside were some of her personal items, including a book checked out from her local library and a concert t-shirt that no one in her family recognized. It was the first major clue, but tragically, it didn't lead to answers. In the years since, dozens of tips have come in. In 2015, the FBI reopened the case and offered a reward. In 2016, they released an age-progressed image of what Asha might look like as a teenager. And in 2020, 20 years after her disappearance, they revealed that someone had reported seeing a young girl getting into a green car on the night Asha went missing. But still, no confirmed suspect, no arrests, and no resolution. Asha Degree would be nearly 33 years old today. Despite years of investigation, her case remains an unsolved mystery. Her family continues to search for answers, refusing to give up hope. A Facebook user had just bought a new Samsung Note 9 and decided to test its camera on their dog. A few days later, while sending the picture, they noticed something horrifying in the reflection. In the mirror behind the dog, a scary face seemed to be staring back. No one else was there at the time, and it didn't look like anyone they knew. At first, they thought it might be a trick of the camera or a reflection from another object, but nothing in the room matched what was captured. The owner says they were completely shaken and posted it to Facebook, hoping someone could offer a reasonable explanation. Unfortunately, commenters had only one answer: the paranormal. A Tesla owner decided to test the full self-driving mode in his car, but had a life-threatening experience instead. Driving in foggy conditions, he approached a railroad crossing, where the flashing warning lights should have triggered the car to stop. To his shock, the Tesla kept moving straight toward the train. He had to manually slam the brakes to avoid a collision. Had he not reacted in time, the outcome could have been catastrophic. A man in Vietnam woke up at 3 a.m., feeling uneasy, like someone or something was watching him. He looked around his room but saw nothing, until his eyes fell on the sink. In the dark gap beneath it, a faint outline of a face seemed to stare back at him. He quickly grabbed his phone and took a picture. With darkness all around, he had nowhere to go and had to wait until sunrise. The next day, examining the photo, the face was still visible, its features unclear, but undeniably there. It must be an optical illusion, right? It's hard to imagine anyone actually staying there until sunrise after seeing a face in their room. It was the morning of June 13, 2001, in Omaha, Nebraska. Jason Jolkowski, a quiet, dependable 19-year-old, was getting ready for another ordinary day. He had recently taken up a local job at Fazoli's restaurant, and on that particular morning, he had arranged for a co-worker to pick him up at nearby Benson High School, just a few blocks from his house. Jason told his parents he was heading out to meet the ride, a short 10-minute walk through his neighborhood. But somewhere in those few blocks, Jason disappeared. When the co-worker arrived at the high school, Jason never showed up. Security cameras confirmed he never made it to the school, and no one, not neighbors, not passers-by, ever reported seeing him on the route. His parents quickly reported him missing. Within hours, search teams canvassed the area. Flyers were distributed, interviews were conducted, tips were chased, but nothing surfaced. No witnesses, no signs of struggle, no phone or wallet, no trace at all. It was as if he had simply vanished into thin air. Jason was known as a responsible and introverted young man. He was close to his family, active in amateur radio, and had dreams of transferring to a local college. There was no reason for him to disappear voluntarily. And yet, for over 2 decades, his case has remained one of Nebraska's most baffling and heartbreaking unsolved mysteries. In the years since, his parents still live with the same haunting question. How does a 19-year-old vanish on a 10-minute walk in broad daylight and leave behind not a single clue? If you know anything about the disappearance of Jason Jolkowski, you're urged to contact Omaha police or your local authorities. Even the smallest detail could finally bring answers to the family. A man was having repeated toilet clogs at his home and decided to call a plumber to check things out. What they found was far beyond anything expected. Hidden inside the plumbing system was a large snake, slithering through the pipes. The man and the plumber managed to remove the snake. For us viewers, a new fear is unlocked. A woman came home after a long day and began playing with her cat. Thinking it was a wholesome moment, she set her phone facing the mirror to record them. But when she watched the footage later, something was off. Behind her, reflected in the mirror, a third presence appeared. A pale, expressionless face stared directly at her, and the cat from just behind her shoulder. Terrified, the woman decided to stay with a friend for a while. What would you do? TikTok creator Kraken Jack noticed something disturbing in their bathroom. Hanging from the metal faucet was a thin brown shape, something that looked like a wet strand of hair. But it wasn't hair. As they brought a tissue closer, the shape suddenly pulled itself back inside the tap. Some thought it might be a spider leg hiding inside the faucet. But the truth, it turned out to be a drain worm, the larva of a drainfly commonly found in damp areas like sinks and pipes. Harmless, but definitely not something you want to find in your water. A person found an old photo they had taken as a child on a camera from the early 2000s. At first glance, it looked completely innocent, but looking closer, a grey, ash-like humanoid figure appears to be sitting beside them. The poster says they never noticed the figure back then. Now they're wondering if what they captured might be a ghost. This footage was reportedly captured inside El Palacio de Hierro near the Socorro in Mexico City, around 2 a.m., long after closing time. In the video, multiple Amazon Echo display units on the sales floor suddenly activated at once and began reciting the chaplet of the Divine Mercy in Spanish. What's really disturbing isn't just the prayer, but the synchronization. Several devices appeared to speak together inside a dark, empty store. The Zocalo sits atop the ruins of Tenochtitlan, a place many consider spiritually heavy. Because of this, people believe it's a place where unusual things happen after dark. Skeptics, however, say it was likely a glitch or a remote command, but others believe the timing and location feel far too specific to ignore. A woman shared a photo taken in December 2002 by her ex-husband on Facebook. In the image, their baby lies in a carrier, but something strange appears above her. One shape is bright white and elongated, almost like legs. The other is a dark, shadowy blur nearby. The angles and lighting don't match normal shadows, and everything else in the room looks calm and undisturbed. Some believe these shapes could be protective entities, while others fear something far darker. Whatever the truth, the image has haunted the family for over 20 years. In 1995, a woman named Amber Dawn moved into a rented apartment in Enumclaw, Washington. At first, everything felt normal, until strange things started happening. Over time, she noticed food disappearing from her fridge, doors left open or closed without explanation, and odd noises above her, like someone walking around. She tried to ignore it at first, but then, one night, she noticed the attic hatch was open, and suddenly all the puzzle pieces made sense. Someone had been quietly living in her home. Cops were called, and although no one was found at the moment, police did discover some belongings in the attic. The intruder was never caught, and Amber moved out soon after, but the feeling of being watched stayed with her long after. Reddit user CDQL shared a photo taken casually as a keepsake by her wife's uncle, who was in the military. At first, nothing seems unusual, but looking more closely, a blurry figure appears in the foreground. Some commenters suggested it could simply be a double exposure or a camera glitch, noting it looks very similar to the person standing next to it. Still, the photo definitely gives off a creepy vibe. A woman at home began hearing an unsettling voice that sounded like a child, so one night she decided to start recording. According to her, this had been happening for 2 weeks. Anyone familiar with horror stories knows that hearing children's voices in an empty house is a serious red flag. Commenters are divided on whether this is a ghost or just a hoax, but everyone agrees. The footage is terrifying. A woman was working behind the counter of a bar, calmly mixing drinks, when suddenly a bottle flew out of her hand and slid across the counter on its own. She was stunned as the bottle moved with no visible force. No one else was behind the bar, and nothing should have caused it to move. When she reviewed the security footage, the moment seemed just as strange, if not stranger, than before. It could be staged with strings or magnets, but many who've seen the clip believe it's genuine. A woman had been left alone in a quiet section of a hospital late at night to decorate for an early morning event. At first, everything seemed normal. Then, she heard this. The unmistakable sound of a baby crying, echoing through the empty corridors. As she filmed, a dark, shadowy shape briefly appeared in one of the corridor windows. Easy to miss, but impossible to ignore once seen. Some believe this captures the ghost of someone who passed away in the hospital. The combination of sound and shadow makes it hard to think otherwise. Reddit user Michelle Liane shared a chilling story that recently resurfaced with new footage. Late one night, a friend's home security camera in a quiet neighborhood captured what appeared to be a baby. Concerned, the homeowner contacted authorities. Search and rescue teams were dispatched, thinking a real infant might be in danger. However, After reviewing the footage, officials reportedly concluded it was simply a camera glitch, but not everyone was convinced. The original images show what looks unmistakably like a small baby on the camera feed. Timestamp screenshots make it even stranger. In one frame, the baby appears clearly. Just 1 minute later, the figure is completely gone. No movement, no transition, no explanation. As if it simply vanished. Then, the story took an even darker turn. Recently, a video resurfaced on TikTok by user Asha's Stoyu, revisiting the case and adding unsettling new material. The TikToker revealed that the poster's daughter, Ensley, took a photograph showing a ghostly figure closely resembling the same baby seen on the security camera. The resemblance is strong enough that many believe it can't be a coincidence. The original poster added that even more unsettling, the baby looks exactly like her daughter Ensley when she was just 2 years old. Emergency services were called, investigations were carried out, and official explanations were given. Yet, even with all that, the footage refuses to sit comfortably as just a glitch. Reddit user Queso Amor was driving past an old abandoned building in Richmond, Indiana, when, in an upstairs window, something strange caught their eye. At first, they thought it was just a Halloween decoration, but something didn't feel right, so they pulled over and snapped a quick picture. In the photo, a pale human-like face can clearly be seen, staring out from behind the glass. But the most disturbing part, just seconds later when they looked back, the face was gone. They returned to the location several times on different days, but the window was always empty, as if nothing was ever there. So, what was it? It seems too detailed and realistic to be just a trick of the light, right? Someone uploaded a clip from a baby monitor showing a baby asleep in her crib. At first, everything seemed normal, but then a cloud of white smoke or fog appears, hovering above the baby. It drifts slowly across the crib before disappearing. The person who recorded the footage believes the camera may have captured a spirit visiting the child. There's no way to confirm or disprove this, but ethereal foggy shapes around infants often spark these kind of theories. Some think it's just a trick of the light or a camera artifact, while others feel it could be something supernatural. Either way, the footage is mysterious. For more scary encounters, watch this next video.